What's going on, everybody? Today we're installing an upgraded oil cooler in my 2007 BMW 335i. Now this one's by G+. It's a kit with the lines and the fittings and the cooler and everything to go along with it. The only thing the kit doesn't have that it needs to make the lines line up right is a -10 AN fitting like this one here. My car comes with the factory oil cooler, and this guide is really only for people that have a factory oil cooler. But this kit comes with the adapters to plug into the thermostat housing, so you can convert the straight BMW fitting into a -10 AN line. Yeah, so let's get into it. We got the car jacked up. We got the passenger side wheel off. We got to get the fender liner inside the wheel arch here off, and then start taking off the lines. Getting the fender liner off on the front here is just a couple 8s and 10 mils. Getting the scoop out is just a T20 on the front here and there. Now to get the lines out of the housing, there's one bolt that goes upward. So I'm going to take out the radiator fan so I can get better access to underneath this and drop the lines out. Taking out the radiator fan, there's one 8mm up here, and you might still have one 8mm down on the bottom right there, but mine only has one bolt holding it in, top left. The electrical connection to the fan can be a little bit tricky. I like to get a flathead and push on the lower tab that's against the plastic. Use my thumb on the other while I pull out. Getting the fan out is genuinely an awkward experience. It's just so tight in there. It rubs against all this front plastic and some of the hoses, but it comes out straight up. Now we have access to the 13mm that's right under here. Let's get it. I'm gonna put down a bunch of paper towel here to collect any oil that leaks out. Mines are still pretty hot. Oh. Get this out of the way or something. So I'm just going to disconnect where these oil lines come from. They go down into the fender, but there's a 13mm, you can see where my wrench is, that is a union plate for where the lines go down to the cooler. I'm going to get this off so I can have this section separate, don't have to pull it through the fender. Fucking oil is everywhere. Jesus Christ. Oh, there's so much oil, man. Okay, now to get this cooler out, because the lines just got disconnected up there. You got one 10 and a 13 and a 13. Then it should come out. Now I want this bracket off the cooler here, but the bolts here are security Torx. Just a pain in the ass. So I'm going to get those off somehow with some pliers. Oil cooler holder. You see you've got ventilation at the back to guard rock chips from your tire hitting the cooler. And then the bracket that came off the cooler fits on the top 2 studs here, which is good. It triangulates and holds the cooler nicely. Then the cooler here fits inside like so. A little bit of wiggle room, but we'll get this sorted out. So I'm just mocking up the oil cooler bracket here, and I got some M6 by 1.0 bolts from the hardware store that go through there. You got your added 90 right there, a little bit of packing foam to just secure it against the back, and I put a little bit of double-sided adhesive back along this edge to just keep it stuck against that edge. Hopefully it doesn't melt or smell. Now on the oil thermostat engine side of things, so you've got your adapter, right? It goes from the BMW straight side to your AN line. It's got this little plate that connects them and slots them in, holds them in place. They do send you 2 O-rings, but who knows how good they are, so I ended up getting some from FCP Euro for the same thing. So we've got a genuine gasket going in there. Now I'm going to try and fit them up underneath here. I'm going to try and do it by installing the 2 fittings first and then threading the lines onto there and see how we can arrange it. Okay, so after a lot of fiddle farting around, a lot of struggle, I finally got the hose situation sorted where it actually is not kinked here and it actually lines up over there at the housing. So what I did was bottom hose comes up, goes straight, goes on the far side of the aluminum bracket, and then it goes between the headlight and this bracket straight up. You're trying to keep the hoses as close to the passenger side as possible so that it goes the longest route, because the hoses are a little long. And then off the top line, use the 90, put it out basically horizontal, drilled a little hole in the aluminum bracket right here, you can see, and then zip tied it, but also taped it just to keep it pushed away from the wheel, because this is like in the wheel arch area, so I just want to keep it that way as much as possible. And then sent it up the rearward of this brace that goes between fender and frame rail, and then sent it up and over. Looking from the top here, you can see they basically both come to the left of the vacuum canisters over, and well, this one isn't hooked up right now, but they both line up quite nicely. Before, when I ran it the first time, they had this big extra loop because they came up like here instead of over here, and this is the nice routing for them. I have faith that this is going to work. The last little provision I did to make this super sturdy is I put a little hole in like the brace here up above the cooler, and then just zip tied it so it's pulling up the weight of the cooler. And honestly, it's solid now. Between like the 13, the 10, and the zip tie, everything's held in place. All right, and this is the cooler in with the fender liner. in. I cut out a large hole here. It used to be like this, kind of going across the top. Now I just cut out a large chunk kind of down below it to make more room, make it fit nicely, and also let air flow through. It's starting to fit well. The tightest corner is down in the bottom right here, but I've got this hole lining up. It doesn't look lined up right now, but everything else in the top seems to line up. Now, pardon my sins for not having an AN wrench, but good news for you, I was able to get these two tight after putting in the adapters into the housing and then threading the lines on to the adapters, and it worked. In the front of the bumper, it looks menacing. I'm gonna have to either get some mesh or a dam to like redirect the air a little bit, but this will do for now. So I got the lines connected and it was a pain. First, as you saw, I had these two connected and tight and everything was good, and I tried to get the fan in. Fan doesn't fit. Basically, like, it hits on the edge of this thing here. So I fought it and tried a bunch of things. I even tried loosening up the core support here. I tried loosening this, but that doesn't do anything. This didn't really help make enough room to move the radiator forward. And it was just probably about a 1/4 inch, maybe 3/8 of an inch of overlap where these things were not gonna be sharing the same space. So I ended up taking out the right line here, dropped that out because that's the one that sticks out the furthest. Got the radiator fan in, no problem, and then was able to tighten this from an angle here. Sure, it'd be nice if I had like a crow's foot wrench to get on there and not mar the fitting so much, but we got it done. Now, before you start it, I wanted to prime the system. So to prime the system, I took out the injector plugs there, right, all 6, took them out, and then cranked the car 3 times, 10 seconds each, and then with like a 1/2 minute break in between to let the starter cool down. Then just primes the system maybe. You hope that the oil circulates and maybe shows a leak or gets into the cooler and things like that. So I've just run the car. Lines are hot, it feels good, and cooler's warm down here. No leaks, it's good. And this is the final setup for the lines. I used the provided clamp, basically just keep the lines aligned, and then one zip tie to kind of keep it pulled over, and it's flush. Doesn't stick out, it's nicely routed. As long as it doesn't leak in the future, it'll be good. Now the only thing I really want to figure out is like a different AN line setup for this so that this allows the fan to be taken in and out without having to drop off that right line, because that'd be a pain. Every time you want to like service your belt or go in there and do something with the fan, you have to take out this line and make a mess. That's no good. So I'm thinking about how I'm going to upgrade that in the future, either with a different like 90 fitting, maybe like an extended 90. If you could get this 90 that was longer and go down and underneath this one, that would be great, but I don't know what's out there. I'm gonna have to look into it. That's a wrap on installing a G Plus oil cooler into my 335. If you have any questions about the parts, the kit, how to avoid any mess ups like I had, drop a comment down below. I do my best to answer them. Thanks for watching, and as always, have a good day.